Last year my psychotic mother burned down my childhood home, that her, my dad, my niece, my sibling, and sibling's partner lived in, because she believed my dad was cheating on her, despite no evidence, and this was not the first time she accused my dad of cheating with no evidence. Effectively, she destroyed everything we had built and kept in that home, along with my dad's dog and my sister's cat. Cat was burned up, so never found, but the dog died of asphyxiation in my niece's room under her bed. Then after the fire, in what I can only construe as an act of desperation, she went to my bank and stole all of the money out of my accounts because she was secondary on the accounts. I was working on changing banks, but my new bank had yet to finalize the creation of my new account. Moral of the story is take your parents off your bank accounts when you turn 18. She's now serving time in a county jail for the arson because she took a plea deal and got a reduced sentence, which I still believe was utter crap. She played the poor old lady act to the judge and he took pity on her that she did not deserve. This is the woman who eviscerated my self-esteem and made my life hell ever since I was born. She was toxic and abusive, never told me the truth about anything, and is a greedy, manipulative person. I feel no shame in saying that I do not care about her. She's lost any right to my love and respect. Welcome to Reddit Town Hall. If you like the channel, why not subscribe? What's the craziest crime you or somebody in your family has committed? My cousin's husband got caught on a predator chaser's live stream trying to kidnap a 14-year-old boy. My father committed one of the first computer crimes in the 90s. A ton of files were corrupted due to a code he created because they fired him. FBI invaded our home and arrested him. Was sent to federal prison for 4 years, which was interesting because there was never a crime committed of its nature before. They made a forensics file episode about it. Edit, if anyone is curious, the company was Omega. My uncle used to dress up with a group of friends as DEA agents in the 80s and raid crack houses, only to take the drugs and consume them. Twin brothers boosted a car and robbed the 711 like half-mile from house. Ditched car 10 houses from theirs. How were they caught? Officers respond to alarm triggered by Clark. Officer, got an alarm here, what happened? Clark, Tim and Tom came in and robbed the store. Officer, how do you know it was these guys? Clark, they are 6'4" twins who come in every day. I know their shape and voice. The car 911 operator, 911 what is your emergency? Neighbor, was watching TV and 2 guys park a car in front of my house. One guy got out with like a Windex bottle and cleaned all the door handles and door areas. Then opened door and the other guy took the stuff and cleaned the inside areas. Then they ran off up the street. Dispatch, can you describe the 2 individuals? Neighbor, well it was Tim and Tom, the twins that live up the street from me. They're like 6'4" and they are twins. My brother got completely inebriated one night and stupidly drove home. He woke up early in the morning to the sound of a baby crying. He looked around and noticed he didn't recognize the house. He quickly got up and walked outside to his car halfway in the driveway/street and still running. Got in his car and drove away as quickly as he could. Turns out it was some random house about 5 to 10 minutes away from our actual house. He never knew whose house it was and never got caught. He also slowed down his drinking after that. My mom set a dude on fire. When I was young I had a babysitter, named Chris. He was the uncle of my 2 best friends, sisters Abby and Becca. He was also abusive. He liked to do things to me in front of them. Make them listen to my cry and scream. Nothing physical, I should mention. More psychological. Anyway, I didn't tell anyone about it. And in fact only learned this story about 2 years ago. But it turns out that my best friends did. They told my mom and she was pissed. Soon after that, there's a party at my friend's parents' house. My mom goes and sees Chris. He's all nice to her. They're outside in the backyard. She starts kinda joking around. Roughhousing. Messing with him. She grabs some lighter fluid and sprays some on him. Ha ha ha, just a joke. She lights a match. Ha. You wouldn't do it, would you? And she lights him on fire. According to my mom, he was put out quickly so he was fine. But she told him that's what it's like when you're scared for your life. And then she left. Apparently he flew back to Florida the next day. Back in the mid-90s, I lived in a shared rented house in the north of England with 4 ex-schoolmates. It was a bit of a drugs den, right next to the bus station, so everyone called in on their way into town for a cup of tea and a spliff, and same again on the way out. So it was always rammed, lots of acid and mushrooms on weekends, people crashing everywhere. One morning, me and my girlfriend were woken up by the police coming into my bedroom room, illegally. They claimed to have pushed the door and it swung open, and telling us all to gather in the front room. I had my skinning up box next to the bed. I assumed the police were there for drugs or course, so I hid my stash before I came down. So we're all sat in the lounge hungover and the policeman says, so, who knows about the credit card? We all just went wah? Because it wasn't what we were expecting, except one of my housemates stands up and says no one else knows anything, it's me, and goes off with the police. Turns out, a bank card had been delivered for a previous tenant, and then shortly after a new PIN. My housemate had taken it, and emptied the account of a load of cash. And what had he bought with his stolen cash? A gecko, in a big fancy glass cabinet. He was struggling to pay his rent, we all were, but here was this massive green mother sat sunning itself in our front room. All 6 or so of us just sat and looked at it as he was taken away. My wife's cousin was arrested for the manufacturing of meth 3 times and was sentenced to life. His mom and dad all cooked meth and supplied basically the entire area. The worst part is that during his last arrest he was taking the fall for his parents. They were in large part why our small sleazy little trash heap of a town was one of the top 5 for meth in the United States at the time. My parents' horse got loose, and somebody hit and killed it. The horse disposal people wanted some relatively reasonable amount of money to come pick up the carcass, but my parents were like, fuck that. Hey/you/Hendigal, load that shit up on the flatbed and find somewhere to dump it. Me, okay. Sure, Pops. Calls stoner friend me, hey, want to go dump a horse somewhere? Stoner friend, sure. I have nachos. Me, cool stoner friend, cool. So stoner friend and I got even more stoned than usual and took my parents' flatbed truck out and tried to winch the horse up onto it. Turns out you really can't winch a dead horse onto a flatbed. It's not the winching that's the problem so much as the 5 feet lift up to the edge. We fucked up a lot of that horse trying, though. Attempt number 2, we went home and built a big ass ramp out of plywood and 4x4s. It took most of a day and half a dime bag of weed. We argued a lot about whether or not we should bevel the part of the 4x4s that touched the ground. Final decision, neither of us knew how to do that, so we opted for no bevel. Back at the horse, we wrapped the winch line around the head this time. Fun fact, steel cable looped around a horse head in a slip knot arrangement is a good way to reenact a famous scene from The Godfather. We didn't quite decapitate Mr. Gooseberry, long may he gallop in the heavenly fields. But it wasn't pretty. Nothing about a dead horse is pretty, but that bit in particular was remarkably not pretty. We decided to go with our original idea, lash the front hooves together with rope. Small problem, we'd cut the rope at some point. Neither of us could remember why, or who did it. But nothing for it, we had to go home. Finding more rope required smoking half a joint, which I think is quite reasonable given the task we were set to. Back at the horse again. Our engineering marvel worked. We had some initial worry that we would pull one or both of the horse's 4 legs out of its socket, but apparently dead horse sinew has quite a bit of tensile strength. We used tie-down straps to lash the horse and ramp to the flatbed, initiating a discussion about why we hadn't used those in place of rope. leading to an argument over whether or not that would have worked, leading to an awkward hostile silence as we drove around the ass end of South Dakota looking for a place where we could dump a dead horse. I'm sure there were many places one could dump a dead horse in the middle of rural South Dakota. Strangely enough, though, we were both feeling a little paranoid. Every car that passed us was a plainclothes cop car. Every person standing out in their field was heading straight to their house to report us as soon as we went around the bend. Finally, we found a field in the Black Hills National Forest that looked like a good spot. It had trees, which we thought the horse would like, and there was a nice parking area next to a snowmobile trailhead. Goose had never liked snowmobiles, so the idea of his skeletal carcass scaring the shit out of some ski-doer coming off the trail seemed like something that would have appealed to the old fella. We backed the truck a little ways into the ferns next to the trail. Then we used a come along to pull the dead horse off the flatbed. About a mile into the way home, Stoner friend said, "Does your horse have tattoos?" I was like, "It's a horse, not a fucking chief petty officer in the Merchant Marine. Why would it have fucking tattoos?" Well, apparently some horses have tattoos, according to Stoner friend. It's how they identify them if they're stolen. Note, subsequent research revealed that this was usually only something done with thoroughbreds, which our horse was definitely not. Back at the horse again. "I think they put them on the lip, inside," says Stoner friend. Have you ever pulled back the lip of a dead horse to look for tattoos? Worst, never have I ever. There were no tattoos. But then Stoner friend says it's probably one of those tattoos that only lights up under UV. By then, most of the weed had worn off, but there was that tiny bit of paranoia still holding on for dear life. What if there's a UV light lip tattoo on your horse/you/hendigal? They're going to catch you for sure. So there I was, in the early South Dakota summer evening, cutting the lips off of a day-old dead horse with a dull pocket knife. Bonus, we just threw the lips into the woods a little ways because nobody's going to go looking for horse lips in the woods, Stoner friend, and that's how illegally dumping an animal carcass on federal property is the craziest crime I or anybody in my family have ever committed. My father, when I was still very young, used a fake name and pretended to be a wedding planner for a young couple. That young couple hired him, since he seemed trustworthy and is an excellent liar, giving him access to their savings for wedding supplies and such that would be needed. Instead, he stole all of the money out of their account and then ran away with it. As far as I am aware, he was never caught and the money was never returned to them. The worst part is that the poor couple never even got their wedding and had almost nothing left afterwards. In college we got a new printer and printed off a bunch of fairly convincing $20 bills, roughed them up and used them at a bunch of fast food restaurants. Didn't realize how dumb it was until years later. So my great aunt disappeared off the face of the earth after her daughter's wedding and nobody had any clue what happened. Foul play wasn't suspected or anything, however her shotgun was missing. Well, like a month ago we found out she died last year. She had apparently skipped jury duty to go to the wedding, and instead of doing anything logical she straight up ran away and lived in hiding in a backwoods town in Washington. No letters or anything, she just decided that the most effective way to get around jury duty to go to a wedding was to live in hiding for 30 years. Edit, grammatical errors. Cousin was taking care of a woman in coma. He raped her. Little he knew was that her parents had set a webcam to check regularly if she would wake up. He deserved every single day he spends in prison. My grandmother accidentally killed her second husband when he asked her to shut off the breaker while he did electrical work, but she didn't do it. She shot her daughter's second husband in the back and claimed self-defense. He was an abusive alcoholic cop. She got community service. She forgot to buckle in her brother, who had muscular dystrophy, and had a car wreck on her birthday. When he didn't die, she used a rock to bash his head. Cops found the bloody rock but for some reason didn't think the case was strong enough. She accidentally let her elderly charge drown in the bathtub when she was a home care nurse. The last one I know of, she suffocated her last elderly charge with a pillow. She was found incompetent to stand trial because she faked senility. That was 10 years ago. She's now 88 and ignores all COVID-19 restrictions. She's still driving even. So many men have proposed to her over the decades. They have no idea how lucky they are she said no. My sister shoplifts uncontrollably. She shoplifts everything everywhere she goes. Her daughter just turned 1 and she has stolen every bit of formula her daughter ever used. It's insane she's never been caught. My uncle stole one of those oil candles from our table at a Hard Rock cafe once. When we got outside he pulled it from his jacket with it still lit. I used to drive for my weed dealer. I was a new buyer but I never asked questions and was cool with him. His car broke down and asked if anyone could drive him. I said I would, and he liked that. I have my back windows tinted but not my front windows. I'd pick him up and we'd drive almost all day. It was pretty chill. He's give me free weed and pay me $250 a day. I still worked my part-time delivery job so I was very happy. He got his car fixed and didn't need me to drive him around anymore. Which is fine, considering his ex snitched in him and he got busted a couple weeks later. My grandpa wouldn't obey the train warnings. He would try and beat the train rather than wait. First time he got hit in his new convertible on the way to prom with my grandma. Had barely started on the payments and car was totaled. Luckily they were both okay. Second time was a little less reckless but still dumb. He was driving a semi and it broke down on the tracks. He kept trying to get the tractor trailer to start, rather than lose his rig and load. Semi got hit by the train, total loss and fucked up his back. I caught a distant cousin once at an Amish farm humping a horse. He's in prison now. My dad's cousin erased all family member names from a property deed except for his father's. The paperwork had been water damaged so there was no easy way to tell what should have been there. Family law says that he also paid off some local politicians, office workers to make the new deed stand. He's dead now. But years ago my relative got in a bar fight and lost so he went to his vehicle to get his rifle. Fortunately the police arrested him on the way into the bar so his charges were a lot less. Still did jail time. My friend got blackout drunk and stole a bulldozer that had the keys left in it. He turned it on and obviously didn't know how to drive it so he just ended up making the scoopy part go up and down for a bit before the cops came. They actually let him go too. A distant cousin got her terminally ill father to give her power of attorney and then stole all of his money so she wouldn't have to split it with her brother. Edit, don't worry, she did go to jail as her rush to clean him out involved a lot of fraud and forgery. Edit 2, man, it is slightly depressing how many of you have similar stories. What's up with people? When I was a young teen, the boys from the neighborhood and I loved playing pinball and video games at our local bowling alley. Problem was we didn't have enough money to enjoy our new addiction. We decided to do something about that little problem. We started with a very rudimentary system. We actually scotch taped a piece of thread to a quarter and were able to fish it up and down a couple times before the string would break, or the tape would give out. This worked fairly well, but we wanted, and needed more. Our next plan was a little more professional. We somehow concocted a scheme to make quarters. A few lessons in science class had actually stuck, and we realized that we needed something to fool the coin mechanism in the pinball machine into thinking that whatever it was we made our quarters with was an actual quarter. We ended up deciding that lead would be our material of choice. We used lead for a couple of reasons. A couple of the guy's father was an avid hunter. He even reloaded his own shotgun shells. Because of this he had a burner set up in his shop to melt down lead. Another reason is that lead is not magnetic science. We made a mold out of plaster and used the burner to melt lead to make our quarters. But where to get more lead ? One of us came up with the brilliant thought that tire weights were made of lead. Carrying screwdrivers and pliers we scoured the parking lots of shopping centers. We would wander through and drop down out of sight between cars. Using the tools we had brought we would manage to get the tire weights off with little trouble. We were in business. Our production line was soon up and running. We would melt lead, pour it into our mold, cool it and then move on to finishing our new quarter. The finishing process was crude, but effective. We would snip off the burr where the lead was poured. We would then file down the edge, making sure it stayed mostly round. Using steel wool and a polishing cloth we would then shine the quarters. Now came the trial run. We went to the bowling alley with a few quarters to see if our harebrained scheme would actually work. In they went, and the pinball machine lit up and was ready to be played. Success. We intensified our production and soon we had bunches of quarters. We were thrilled. We could play video games anytime we wanted. Every day after school you'd find us at the bowling alley, happily playing our games. But our downfall was soon to come. We never thought of the fact that someone might notice a bunch of fake quarters being used in their video games and pinball machines. It literally never crossed our early teenaged minds. We just knew we were having a blast. One fateful day we went to the bowling alley as usual. We started playing games and soon some men approached us. They started questioning us and accusing us. We were scared to death. One of the guys yelled "Run!" and we took off as fast as we could. We made it to the doors and down the steps we went. We all lived on the same cul-de-sac and that's the direction we headed. Running as fast as we could, we briefly split up. The men that were chasing us only followed one of us kids. He made the colossal mistake of running straight to his house and through the front door. From there our crime spree ended. A few days later I was in class when I was called to the office. When I got there my father was sitting with a man I'd never seen before. He was wearing a black suit with a black tie. I had to go before the principal, my father and a member of the United States Secret Service. Although they take the counterfeiting of US currency very seriously, they understood that it was just a bunch of knucklehead kids making quarters to play video games. He actually told me that he was impressed with the quality of the quarters. He also said that they had recovered over $75 in fake quarters. We had made, and used, over 300 quarters. We had to make restitution for the money and the charge was placed on our juvenile records. It was explained to us that if we kept our noses clean the charge would be expunged. Luckily for me I learned my lesson and stayed on the straight and narrow for the rest of my young adult life. And that, fellow Redditors, is how I was charged with counterfeiting US currency. If that doesn't define the meaning of a crazy crime, I don't know what would. Mine is incredibly stupid, but looking back reminds me of how actually crazy the whole situation was. When I was in the 6th grade my parents, mom plus stepdad, got married and moved me to this very small, very religious, very tight-knit community. My life changed immeasurably that year and I absolutely hated my new school and all the people in it. So our morning routine was parents get up at 6, wake me at 6:30, both parents are out the door by 6:45 and I have to catch my bus at 7:15. Well, 11-year-old me figured out that I could just not catch my bus and my parents, both working demanding jobs, would not be home until 3 hours after I usually got home, so they'd never know. The first day I skipped school was easy. By week 2 I realized I'd have to go back for exams, especially the state exam which determined if you got to move to the next grade, and obviously the school would want to know why I was absent. So I devised a plan, wherein I called the school pretending to be my mother and told them my poor daughter had mono and would be in and out as she felt better, and I asked them to please change my contact number to my home phone, that way I could intercept any phone calls. And thus began the 6 weeks where I went to school only ever on days that I had exams. Unbeknownst to me, one of my teachers wrote a note with my report card, that were mailed to our house, that said she was so proud of me for keeping up with my school work despite being sick and out of class so often. I was in 3rd period when I got called to the office to find my vice principal, 2 very angry parents, and a truancy officer waiting for me. I had to go to court because I had missed so many days and was given community service as punishment. I was also sent to in-school suspension, ISS, for the remainder of the year. It's still on my criminal record, although since I was underage when it occurred the details are sealed, but I was 100% convicted of truancy. My uncle sold Tim Allen the cocaine that got him sent to prison in the late 70s. My grandfather's father was a mean, abusive, hateful drunk, who would come home from working in the mines long enough to terrorize his children and impregnate his wife and then leave again for mine work. He tried to set the house on fire, with wife and kids, 13 of them, inside. Twice. One day my grandfather and a couple of his siblings were picking berries across the road from the house, and his drunk father started taking patshots at them with a rifle. My grandpa, one brother, and his oldest sister took off running for the house with the agreement that the first one there would kill him, their father. My grandpa's sister got there first and shot him to death. She was never charged with a crime, due to her age and the fact that everyone knew my great-grandfather was a mean son of a bitch and had it coming. ETA, wow, my most upvoted comment is about my family's fucked up history. Lol edit number 2, thank you all so much for the awards. Also, RIP inbox. Lol edit number 3, since some of y'all think it's fake, here's some proof. https://imager.com/a/5phfzqq. My dad got into a bar fight around 21 or so, hit a guy so hard he killed him. He went to prison of course, but while working along the road he stopped another prisoner that attacked a guard and tried to escape. My dad was released for that. He never drank after that, and if he got angry he just walked out of the house to cool off. He turned 81 a week ago and he's the nicest, easiest going guy you would ever meet. He never judges anyone. He once said to me, "We all make mistakes." For the record, I only heard the story about 10 years ago from my brother. He told him during a road trip. He lived in a small town and I have no idea what prison he was at or the official reason he was released, but considering it was probably around 61/62, they probably used whatever reason they wanted to for his release. Edit, thanks for the award, wasn't necessary but thanks. My grandfather's cousin stabbed a waiter to death because he wouldn't let him use the employees only restroom in his restaurant. I worked at a movie theater when Back to the Future was originally released. We used to take the entire movie ticket instead of tearing them and resell them to the next group coming in. The old theater was massive. Sat 600 people. We probably made about $15,000 between two of us in month or so. Adjusted for inflation, it's about $37,000. We were the richest high school kids in our town. My husband's dad killed the guy who his then girlfriend was cheating on him with. He was supposed to serve a life term but got out because of a clerical error. He did manual labor on a local park and apparently the guys who helped were supposed to get a reduced sentence. However, he was not supposed to. I think my husband talked about it once. Also, my husband's half-brother, same murderous dad, killed his business partner. He would have gotten away with it, however, he moved the body when he found out construction was going to start in that spot. And what were they going to build there? A prison. He's currently serving a life sentence. My husband has never met his half-brother. He also has two half-sisters from the same dad who are law-abiding citizens. I was in middle school, 13 to 14, and my buddy and I snuck out of the house to go cause mischief. We did this almost every weekend and we really only snuck out just because we knew we shouldn't be. The worst we ever did was TP our other friend. Other than that we just rode our bikes around. Except, one time we met up with a couple girls that my friend knew. We were going around our town and tipped a porta potty, put someone's patio furniture in their tree, stupid shit like that. My buddy thought he could show off his muscles by pulling a mailbox out of the ground. I said he couldn't and I was right. To one-up him, I pulled the mailbox right out of the ground and we laughed like little girls as I set it on the homeowner front step. Not 10 minutes later cops rolled around with their spotlight on. Found us, not the mailbox, and brought us home. My dad made me go back to the house and the mailbox was in the ground already. He made me knock and apologize to the homeowner, who happened to be a 90-year-old woman with cancer. That straightened me up real quick and I never did stuff like that again. Only later did I find out what I did was a felony and I didn't feel like living that life anymore. This was a couple of generations back, early 20th century, but there was this guy who was constantly getting drunk and harassing my great-aunt. So, one of her male friends dressed up in an Easter bunny outfit, put a bat in its giant fake carrot and beat the dude with it. He got away with it, but I'm sure it helped that half the community was waiting for the day the guy's liver finally gave out. Edit. Okay, one small clarification, the bat in question was a baseball bat, not the flying mammal. Though that's certainly an interesting visual and I can't say I'm sorry for my small role in creating that image. My dad told me he once snuck into a tire warehouse, he cut the alarm and came in through a window on the roof, and stole a bunch of tires. Cousin got busted robbing a bank. Got sentenced to jail. Proceeded to break out of jail with his cellmate and went on the run. Fast forward a few months and he's living in a hotel room with his cellmate. Cellmate orders a pizza to the room, bad idea. Delivery guy recognized them and reported them to the police. They get arrested again and shortly after my cousin killed himself in prison. My cousin had a wife and a kid and got into a nasty coke habit. We don't bring him up anymore. An uncle robbed a bank, or was an accessory to the robbers, Ike. His brilliant escape when the police showed up was to go to the roof and jump off. He didn't do time, just had to go to the hospital for a broken leg. I'll have to ask my mom when I get a chance, she knows the story better than I do. My aunt had a boyfriend, let's call him Mike, 'cause that was his name. He was always the life of the party, everyone loved him. Always holding my aunt from behind and kissing her neck. A little too much PDA, but hey, they were happy. Turns out Mike was abusive. Like, very abusive. Physically and mentally. The neck kissing was him whispering in her ear, berating my aunt for making a fool of herself dancing. My grandfather found out about the abuse. Went over to Mike's place, knocked on the door. When Mike answered, my grandfather put a gun to his head and said, if I find out you ever touch my daughter again I'll fucking kill you. Velp. A few weeks later my aunt shows up with a black eye and a sling. Mike. He was found dead on the roof of his apartment building the following weekend. We all have zero doubt it was my grandfather's doing. As a successful lawyer I am sure he had connections who could help. Edit. My grandfather never mentioned it. He simply said oh what a shame when he found out. Never admitted to anything, but as far as I'm aware there was not enough crime scene evidence found to charge anyone with the crime. Not sure if it should be considered a crime, but one of my great-aunts was in an abusive marriage with a war vet who took to beating her and forcing her to play Russian roulette when he drank. One night she managed to rig the gun so when he took his turn he blew his brains out. She wasn't charged. My uncle went to prison for chaining a cop to the back of his bike and driving down the highway. I feel like an edit is needed here because I want to say I am not glorifying what my uncle did. I simply answered the question asked. This happened in the 1960s before I was born, so I do not have many details due to the timing and fact he married into the family, and that side of my family is not very close at all. What I do know is my uncle was a part of a very violent gang. I know nothing about what led to the attempted murder. Yes, the cop survived somehow, so I do not know if the cop was good or bad. But, I do not believe very many people, if any, deserve to be tortured in such a manner, or any manner. It's not a bad crime or anything, but it was illegal at the time. So, in Germany, up until a few years ago, we still had a general draft for the army. And a generation ago it was very hard to get out of it. My uncle was a hardcore pacifist, so going to the army wasn't an option for him. But being accepted as a conscientious objector at the time basically required you to be a devout Christian and use the Bible as an argument for why you couldn't kill another human. And my uncle was also atheist. He couldn't realistically object, didn't want to go to the army and didn't want to go to jail, too. So he waited. He got sent his draft notice, passed the physical and got a letter telling him to report to X company under Sergeant Y. He wrote back a reply, on rose-colored paper, scented with perfume, about how much he was looking forward to serving under the strong leadership of Y, promising to obey every one of his orders, and that he can't wait to experience life in the barracks, together with so many strong and muscular men. He was declared unfit for service shortly after. My dad's side of the family grew up as New Hampshire Hicks. My grandfather was stabbed in 2 different bar fights and burned down an entire country club because he thought they were too stuck up. He was never caught and went on to earn a Bronze and Silver Star in the Korean War, but unfortunately lost his leg too. Edit, since this is getting some attention, I thought I might add that my grandfather got his shit together, started a successful small business, and as a funny twist later joined that same country club as an old man. He never really felt welcome there, my dad said, though they weren't really his kind of people. My godfather was arrested for arranging to meet with an underage girl online. Here's the weird stuff: the girl was my age, we have the same name, and me dad later met the girl's mom, many years later and at an unrelated event, and they fell in love and are getting married. So now she's my stepsister. We don't talk to my godfather anymore. When he was a teenager, my dad robbed a mother's cookies truck. Cookies for months. My cousin in Youngstown, used to rob people selling goods on Facebook. Got caught after him and accomplice murdered a man over a PS3. Good times. Edit. I added a comment, but I figured this would get the fastest response to everyone. I am linking the actual article for everything. I was off about some of the details. The victim was selling a computer and PlayStation to take care of his son. There were 2 involved. My cousin actually pulled trigger, had an accomplice driver. Most of my family is like this man, but I find it hard to call someone capable of such cruelty a man. Thank you all for the comments and have a good Christmas. https://www.wfmj.com/story/3529433/ Youngstown man sentenced for murdering victim found on Craigslist. My uncle was a small drug lord in Northern California in the 90s. He had a compound out in Gold Country, had to drive through 3 gates with guards to get to his house. I never questioned it as a kid, just enjoyed heading up so I could fish in the stocked bass pond, which also had snapping turtles, as a line of defense. He'd take me out shopping at the mall with a film canister full of coke that he'd take hits off of occasionally, shadowed by some bodyguards. One time we were out for a ride in his Corvette going well over 100 and got tagged by highway patrol. He talked his way out of the ticket, told the officer he was showing off for his nephew and got carried away. The officer thought it was hilarious, and told me it was lucky since he had a ton of illegal guns and drugs in the trunk and would have made a run for it. He got arrested when I was 15. It was a full-blown, feds descended upon the compound in helicopters and swung through the windows with flashbangs. The whole 9. He was arrested, and since if he snitched on anyone above him he was, very bluntly, a dead man, he took the rap, was extradited to Lee in VA to serve a bit over 10 years. All he asked for while he was there was protein powder. He got prison ripped, and apparently beat someone near to death with a sock full of quarters for cutting in front of him at the payphone. At some point in my life all 4 of my uncles on both sides, plus my dad, have spent time in prison for drug-related offenses. But this particular uncle takes the cake. My dad, when he was much younger and infinitely more stupid, regularly used to drink drive with his friends. It was the early 70s, and no one really cared. To hear him speak about it now, he can't believe how stupid he was. One night, he and his friend were out drinking. They heard there was a party going on at a pub across town and decided to head over. On the way they go past a large club with a queue of people waiting to go in. My dad decides to show off a bit and pull a skid. He miscalculated, hit a curb and flipped the car, sliding down the road on his roof. The car stops, they get out and leg it, to the cheers of the people in the queue. They get the bus back home and immediately call the police to report the car as stolen. The police knew what had happened, but couldn't prove anything. A male relative of mine skydived off the World Trade Center back in the 1980s. He wore rubber gloves to climb the electric fence and had his parachute hidden under a trench coat in a shopping bag. He had a getaway car waiting to him at the bottom, driven by his then-wife friend. His then-wife took the photos. He got caught 2 days later, where he had to give the city an apology and paid a small fine, no jail time. I digitally restored the photos of his jump and the newspaper articles a few years ago. He is a testament to crazy uncles everywhere. And to those who are going to correct me and say it was base jumping, I asked him about this years ago. He said, at the time, the term base jumping hadn't been created yet. It was a skydive when he made it, and it will remain a skydive in his memory. Edit, proof there are others of his chute opening, but I'd have to dig for those. Also, article. Edit, okay, so some people are calling the photo fake. Please remember this was a picture taken from almost 2,000 feet away, using a 35mm film, on a 1980s non-professional camera. And this wasn't the negative. This was a shitty faded 8x10 that I scanned in the late 90s, digitizing it and doing my best to restore it. I will post more pics in the old article he kept when I find them. More photos. 1 and 2 you can see the original pic I posted at the top of number 1. Last edit, yes, the parachute was in a bag and his wife was the photographer, not the driver. I haven't heard this story in over 20 years. I misremembered a few of the details. My great-uncle used to follow civil rights protests around to sell them weed. He also was tripping balls at the I Had a Dream speech. There is a family legend about some great-uncles of mine stealing their dad's corpse from the funeral home. They went out to the woods with it and got drunk, then returned the body the next morning. Edited to add, so I talked to my mom and I missed or misremembered some wonderful details. They broke into the funeral home by backing Dad's work truck through a wall. Dad was a professional burglar who would have appreciated the irony of a thief's corpse being stolen, thought it was hilarious, and been proud his sons pulled the stunt off. They played a game of poker with Dad's body. And at some point they got caught because they attended the funeral the next day in handcuffs. My mom said that the father was apparently the one person in our family who never drank, so they weren't going out to get drunk with Dad one last time. The sons likely had a beer though. Edit, I finally heard back from some people, and it was actually an APC, armored personnel carrier, that they stole, not a tank. Still haven't found a newspaper source, but I've been slowly scouring through some of the archives on sites like this one, which has a lot of old newspapers scanned into it that are providing a fascinating slice of life from that time period. Original post: my mother-in-law and her ROTC friends once stole an actual tank from a military base way back in the 60s/70s. They were there on a field trip and they were finally stopped when they ran out of gas while driving it down the highway. According to my grandmother-in-law, she saw the whole thing going down on the news before she got the call and realized her kid was one of those joyriders. There's a video of it floating around on the internet somewhere. I'm late to this party, but I have a fun one. In the later half of the 18th century, the French and British used Native Americans to supplement their own forces in the struggle for North America. I have ancestors who had a farm in upstate New York when that was the frontier. The parents were killed by a Huron war party, and their son, who was just a child at the time, was taken by the Hurons and raised as one of their own. Years passed, and a time of relative peace settled between the French-backed Hurons and the British. Word trickled down to York, now Toronto, that there was a young white man running around the woods with Indians to the north. The British garrison at Fort York sent an officer and a trooper on an embassy through Huron country, going from village to village to investigate. They found the young man, my many times great-grandfather, and persuaded him to come with them back to British territory. He didn't remember his name, so they gave him the first name of the officer and the last name of the trooper for the sake of giving him some identity as an Englishman. Then the American Revolution broke out. The young man joined one of the ranger units the British Army fielded, because he knew how to fight in forests and live off the land. Obviously the British lost the war, but anyone who fought for them was given land in Canada at the end of hostilities. He was granted land on the north shore of Lake Ontario. One of the conditions of getting the free land was you had to clear a certain portion of it and make a certain amount of communal road along one edge of your property in a given amount of time. All the new settlers in the area worked together to get this done, and one older neighbor recognized my many times great-grandfather from when he was a boy. "Your name's not so-and-so. It's such and such. You're the spitting image of your father." "Oh," says my many times great-grandfather. He then wrote to the British authorities, to whom it may concern, "I fought in the most recent war against the Americans. My name is such and such. Here is my former commander's name and address. He will vouch for me. I believe I am entitled to free land. As luck would have it, I own a farm, and the lot behind me is unclaimed. Could I have that one?" And they gave it to him. 200 and some odd years later, the records of that petition and land grant still exist. He used his real name to defraud the British government out of a second land grant for the same military service. I've always thought that was a cool story. Addendum: I don't think r/AskReddit has a problem with identifying by name someone who has been dead for the better part of 2 centuries. I went googling my ancestor and came across this document about him. Some of the details are not quite as I remember them, but the gist of it is correct. Anyone interested in reading more, enjoy. My uncle has stolen allegedly over 1,000 cars and done other various nefarious things to fund his heroin habit. Got 8 years in prison, got clean during that but was diagnosed with cancer after 7 years of prison and died like 2 months later. My dad brought in a banana tree to the US from his home village in Kerala. He literally walked through customs with a tree in a pot in his arms. The customs lady asked him what he was thinking and he just replied that the banana tree was from his mother's garden. The customs lady must have thought my dad was crazy, but she just let him walk right through. We still have that tree and its offspring. My granddad accidentally shot his brother in the ass. He meant to shoot something out of his hand, but missed. Drunk, genius, hillbilly shit. Thankfully my dad married well, and I turned out alright. Not really a crime as in not necessarily legal, but my grandfather had 2 separate families in 2 different cities. Named both of his firstborn sons after himself, and they both named sons after themselves too, including me. So I share my name with my father and grandfather, as well as a half-uncle and at least 1 cousin. My cousin was the Brett Favre goat lady. She had purchased goat meat from a farm. The farm was supposed to raise the goat, butcher it, and let her pick up the meat. When she arrived, the goat was still alive and had been painted with Vikings colors and Brett Favre's jersey number. The farmer didn't want to butcher it because his kids were around. Her older brother is an outdoorsman/hunter type, so he told her to bring it to his house and he would butcher it for her. They had car trouble on the way, pulled into a mechanic to have the car fixed. The mechanic opened the trunk, saw the goat, and called the police. https://www.news.org/story/2009/10/13/Brett Favre goat guilty plea edit. Stuck this in a reply, but since people keep asking, here is a picture of the goat also. Thanks for the awards. My dad has this really weird habit of stealing signs which has manifested in a bizarre way twice. The first requires minor backstory in that his family has lived in our small town since it was founded, and as such, we have a street named after us. My dad insists that because the street sign has got his name on it, it's technically his property, so he annually steals it. The second I'm not even quite sure how he pulled off. You know those giant highway signs that direct you to what lane you need to be in for your turn off? Where I'm from they are huge and green. Some fucking how, this madman has managed to get one into his shed overnight by himself. This thing could easily weigh a literal ton. I'm so impressed. He's also acquired other strange things such as a Ford factory sign, also one of the giant ones, several billboards, bull skulls, commemorative plaques, carousel horses, and a bunch of other miscellaneous. Whenever he runs out of space he just builds a new shed. He's also not allowed in Canada but won't tell me why. Edit, remembered some more. He also makes couches out of abandoned cars and collects number plates from around the world. He's got every American and Australian state, working on the rest. I was offered a glass of 25 years aged old par and I mixed it with some Pepsi. The look of horror on my buddies' faces is still engraved in my memory more than 20 years later. As a 10-year-old I violated Section 508 of the Communications Act of 1934, received underhanded assistance in a purportedly bona fide contest of intellectual knowledge or intellectual skill. Basically, got manipulated into being on a rigged kids game show, which was cancelled days before it was supposed to air on Fox because someone spilled the beans. I didn't realize until years later what was actually going on. Edit, this kind of turned into an impromptu AMA, so check the replies if you're curious to hear what happened. So before I was born my parents were apparently going through some tough financial issues and were facing eviction if they couldn't come up with a certain amount of money by a certain date. My father decided the best way to handle this situation would be to rob a bank. So the story as I was told it goes like this. My father walked into a small bank with a ski mask on and his hand in his pocket. He went up to a teller and handed her a bag, telling her he was robbing the place, he had a gun, and exactly how much money he wanted, which turned out to be exactly the amount he needed to avoid eviction. He got the money, apologized to the teller and then left. He was never caught. The next part of the story is a little weird and even I have a hard time believing it, but I know my dad, he is no liar. Apparently a year or two later my dad went back to the same bank he robbed every day until he found the teller he robbed previously. He walked up without a mask and handed her an envelope, and immediately left the area. In the envelope was the exact amount of money he stole and a note saying that the money was for the teller, a gift, and how incredibly sorry he was for scaring her when he robbed the place. Again, he was never caught. My father is a very honorable man who was raised in poverty on an Indian reservation. Because of the abuse he went through, both at home and at school, residential schools have a bit of a history to them, he vowed that his kids would never have to go through what he did. I truly believe that robbing that bank was a result of that vow, but emotionally hurting that woman at the bank really ate away at him, so he risked getting arrested to try and make it right. Edit, guess I should have said this, but he didn't actually have a gun, he just told the teller he did. In reality his pocket was empty. My uncle stopped taking his meds and became convinced my aunt was poisoning him. Shot her in the chest. My cousin, her youngest son, found her. One of my great-grandpas drove a truck containing stuff for making alcohol for Al Capone, during Prohibition. My sister-in-law worked on a ski hill. One week there was a promotion by a company where they would blow up big inflatables, like the big gorillas you see in car lots. She had seen them blow them up and deflate them for days, so she knew what the deflated ones looked like. One day she was leaving work and one of these deflated mascot thingies was right behind her car. My sister-in-law has never stolen anything in her entire life, but at that moment she decided out of the blue that she wanted that blow-up. She plopped it in the back and drove home. When I came to visit a couple weeks later she was freaking out about it. She asked me if I wanted it, just to get the evidence out of her house. That is the story of how I came to own a 2-story high inflatable cow. Edit, damn. This one blew up. So, everybody is asking, but no, I don't have any pictures of the cow. It looked like this, https://n. Wikipedia. org/wiki/milka/media/file milka_in_potsdam. JPG edit number 2, a lot of people telling me I'm lying because I don't have photos from 20 years ago, so here, https://imager.com/gallery/skeweds. I dug through my old Facebook photos to find this. I ran for President of the United States and won. My sister stole a puppy. Just walked into the pet store, stuffed her up her jacket. Looking at these other things, she seems a lot less bold than she did before. Edit, puppy tax. This was about 4 years before she, the dog, died I think. https://external preview. Red. It/06IWF8999DCWDMQ4E of US6WPTDG5KWCR9_Eocalq0. JPG. Width equals 1024 and auto equals WebP and S equals E6C71B57938E37741D36C566D0F3159D7D3E6 edit. This is now my most decorated and upvoted post or comment ever. That's hilarious. My aunt came home one evening to find that her son had broken in, killed her dog and was eating it, and then tried to kill her. He was a hardcore addict and it fried his brain badly. Edit, wow, came home from shopping and this blew up. Okay, so to answer some questions / give context, I don't know what he was on at the time, but he was addicted to a myriad of drugs and meth was his drug of choice. It happened a few years ago, and I don't know this side of the family that well. He was arrested, and, I believe has recently been released. And for those of you asking about the state of the dog, and thanks to everyone for the awards. My great-great-grandfather stabbed and killed a hairdresser with a hair comb. Mother's cousin of some level, not sure on removed or third denotations, had a small business in NJ for several years. Never produced, sold, or marketed anything anyone was aware of. He left a message on our answering machine saying, "Goodbye and best wishes." Confused us all. ATF, US Marshals, FBI, DEA, and IRS raided the shop, only to find it empty as relative dude was already yachting to Cuba, where he then jetted to the other side of the planet. Humorless guys in suits randomly checked in with family members for several years thereafter asking for his whereabouts. We had no idea. Got an old-fashioned postcard from him years later from Phuket. Haven't heard a word from him in the years since. No effing idea what he did. My dad's older brother came home from the war in Vietnam to find that his wife had been cheating on him with his best friend. He locked them both in the friend's house and burned it down with them in it. He held the firefighters off with a rifle until he was sure they couldn't be saved, then he shot himself. This was before I was born, but I've seen some newspaper clippings about it. Edit, several people asked how he kept them in the house alone. I asked my mother about it and she said that he locked them together in a small bedroom closet and barricaded the door from the outside so they couldn't get out. This was in the 1970s in New Orleans. I'm not gonna give more info as it'd be easy to tie back to me, same last name, or his daughter who was a little under 2 years old at the time, and I don't want that. Edit number 2, apparently, it's Vietnam and not Vietnam. Thanks for the corrections. My great-uncle stole a train station. Like an actual train station. Edit, bonus crime, he broke into a local police station to steal his own paper criminal record. Didn't destroy or steal any of the others. Just his own. One time my uncle put ranch dressing on a dry-aged NY strip steak that cost $70. My aunt, father's side, kidnapped my sister when we were moving to America mid-80s. I was quite young and my mother and father thought it would be best to keep my sister, a toddler at the time, in safe hands until we settled down for a week or two. My aunt had 3 or 4 miscarriages prior to this happening. Must have driven her mad. About 3 years later, my sister was spotted with my aunt's husband at a farmer's market one day. Family friend tackled the husband. Police got involved. My sister ended up on a plane to the US within a week. My dad was traveling through Tibet in his 20s. I don't know exactly where, but he came across what was evidently a secret Chinese military installation. Being my dad, he decided to take some photos and was somehow spotted. Armed guards, presumably shouting Chinese expletives, started running up the hill toward him. He turned around and hightailed it back over the hill to the road, where he hid himself in an irrigation pipe. He had to hide there for several hours while they drove up and down the road looking for him. Makes me wonder what the hell was in that base, but could just be they thought he was a spy. Anyway, eventually he paid a passing farmer to hide him in his cart and he made it to the nearest town. After spending the night in his rented room, he packs up to get on the bus out of there. Small problem, he happens to look out of his window and sees a Chinese soldier standing by the bus. I will always admire this bit of quick thinking. He decides to shave off his quite big beard. It evidently works, cause he's here snoring in bed right now and not rotting in whatever Chinese equivalent there is to the gulag. TLDR, my dad was seen taking photos of a, presumably, secret Chinese base in Tibet and was chased by armed guards, until he escaped them and shaved off his beard to escape. P.S. I've asked him where the photos are, cause he actually did develop them. Currently rooting through a pile of boxes of old stuff, will link to them if I find them. My cousin was affiliated with a 1% MC, he was not a patched member but would do jobs for them. He got arrested for beating someone with a baseball bat who allegedly had gambling debt with the MC. He did 3 years and was on parole for a few years after that. He's still a shady character and I wouldn't be surprised if he was still doing dumb shit. Edit, MC equals motorcycle club. A 1% motorcycle club is the 1% of MC who are involved in organized crime. Human smuggling. My great-great-great-grandfather's aunts ran a station on the Underground Railroad. Which was morally right, but legally wrong. Not family, but a good friend, so pretty close to family. Stole the mall golf cart that was used to help seniors and disabled people. Had security cashing him down and tried running it through the huge double glass doors into the parking lot. He got away. Shitty thing to do now, but 25 years ago it was pretty funny. One of my great-uncles was highly involved in sanction busting for the apartheid state of Rhodesia. He worked for the Netherlands Bank of Rhodesia and was forced to stay and work through threats to his family by the minority government. Luckily he managed to convince the government that his kids simply must have a British public school education, and that his wife would escort them to London for the start of term. Whilst they were abroad, they were taken into protective custody by the British government, and he managed to slip over one of the land borders to safety. He was flown back to the UK for debriefing and was kept in the country for a while. He took up farming in the deepest and quietest bit of countryside he could find, got stoned, drunk and rode an electric scooter with a friend, only to end up in front of a huge fence with barbed wire I decided to climb. Huge mistake, it was a military base. I ran out of there at speed light when I realized. Fortunately I escaped. I once snuck a camera in a movie theater and made a cam recording of a movie that I uploaded to the internet. My grandfather was often drunk, but when he wasn't drunk he would pretend to be drunk so that the Soviet Communist Party members responsible for interrogating all those who might be opposed to communism thought and said, he's a drunk, we'll question him last. This gave him time to gather resources so he could escape, with my dad. So, although public inebriation probably almost certainly wasn't a crime in most Eastern European countries at the time, late 40s, he would have been gulag bound if he'd been caught in this charade. Uncle Jeff ate a few guys in Milwaukee. My bio dad is a pedo, does that count? Great uncle was forced to flee Italy after protesting Mussolini or something like that. My father tells this story of a time his friends picked him up in a stolen Camaro for a joyride, and at the end of the night the stupid driver decided to use a gas guard they found in the glove box to fill up the tank. When everyone in the car realized that this would help the cops find the car, they drove it to a lot, stripped it of all the parts they could use on other cars and lit a gasoline-soaked rag and hung it out of the gas tank. This explosion rocked the town and no one ever figured out who did it other than us hearing the story 35 years later. Damn, the FBI is on fire today. My cousin and some friends decided to run their bill, leave without paying, aka dine and ditch, at a Bennigan's. Their server ran after them to attempt to collect payment, and my cousin/friends ran over and killed her. This led to a nationwide policy change in most big restaurant companies where they stopped taking this kind of thing out of the server's paycheck and implemented a strict don't follow policy for customers who ran their bills. A great-grandparent, years ago during an occupation, was being approached repeatedly for sex by a soldier/guard assigned to her village. One day she lured him into her home, stabbed him repeatedly and threw him down a well. The entire family knew and no one drank from that well ever again. Edit, grammar/updates, okay, called my mom to get more info. This is like a great-great-great versus just a great-grandparent. Also confirmed that her and her parents and grandparents never used the well, so that's about like 200 plus years of no well use. Location is Eastern Europe. On a personal note, I've never got this many upvotes. I brag to my wife and she says like most achievements of men, all the heavy lifting in this story was done by a woman. I stepped on my dog's foot once accidentally and boy do I regret it. Petty crime, but at the time, it felt like the perfect heist. I was a teenager with some friends at this restaurant that served your meal in this large round branded platter/tray. For some reason, I was determined to walk out the front door with one. I came up with the plan. My friend and I held hands so that we made a bridge. Set the tray on the bridge. Put a coat over the tray. I had another friend sit on the tray. We walked out the front door carrying him and singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. It held the mixtapes in my car for years until I upgraded to a stolen USPS plastic mail bin. Thanks for visiting Reddit Town Hall. Have a great day.